generation born into cell phones and swipe rights, and just for the nights, have found themselves more separated, more out of touch, more untouched than any other generation before. Loneliness and the desire to connect might be why Airbnb just isn't dead yet. Airbnb isn't immune to a collapse, but is it immune to a recession? If it's a recession suffered by the chronically alone, well then Airbnb might as well just be the tobacco industry. Airbnb has positioned themselves to take advantage of the dopamine circuits in your brain the same way that Coca-Cola has done for the last 100 years. But now it's not sugar that we crave, it's experience and escapism and connection. The loneliness epidemic is no longer just a crisis of the heart, but one of the pocketbook as well. According to a study in 2023 by Cigna, 60% of Americans report feeling lonely on a regular basis, with younger generations like Gen Z topping the charts. The same demographic, burdened by digital fatigue and increasingly transactional relationships, is also most likely to spend money on experiences instead of things. And is that coincidence? Hardly. How have we become so lost and so quickly? Simply stated, it's technology. The innovations of man have bred a culture of independence. Even just 100 years ago, multiple generations of families would live in the same house. Defined roles within cultures of tight-knit families created interdependence. And it seems with every technological advance, we sell that advance as a need to be less reliant on others. Capitalism has precisely attacked our desire to be accepted by attacking the shame we feel by relying upon others, telling us that we have to become more independent if we want to not be alone. And just like with capitalism, a loneliness that lasts too long is deadly, and it kills on a cellular level. It starts quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a subtle chill in the air. Loneliness doesn't announce itself with grand gestures, it creeps in through the cracks of your day. At first, it's just a hollow feeling as you scroll through your phone, realizing you haven't talked to anyone in days. And then it becomes something heavier, like a dull weight in your chest, a weight that doesn't go away when the sun rises. You tell yourself you're fine. Perhaps you even thrive in solitude, but deep inside, your body knows better. It's a signal, a blaring alarm from your evolutionary past. When humans lived in tribes, being alone meant being vulnerable to starvation or predators or the cold. Your body still reacts as if you're in that world, as if the shadow of isolation is a threat to your survival. The stress response kicks in, a flood of cortisol rushing through your veins. Your heart beats a little faster. Your muscles tense, senses sharpen. It's a survival mechanism all to get you back to safety. But what happens when there's no tribe to return to? When the days stretch into months and the isolation becomes chronic? That's when the real damage begins. Your immune system, exhausted by the constant state of alert, starts to falter. Inflammation spreads like wildfire, quietly damaging tissue. Just like dominoes, your blood vessels and then organs start to go. Studies have shown that loneliness can be as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, but the damage it inflicts is invisible until it isn't. Heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders. They are not just random ailments. They're whispers of a body fighting an invisible war. And then there's your mind. Loneliness reprograms your brain, sharpening your awareness of threats, making you hypervigilant to rejection. You start to see danger where there is none, hostility where there's only indifference. This distorted view of the world makes connection even harder, turning the cycle into a noose. The years don't just pass, they weigh down on you. Without the social bonds that protect and uplift, your biological clock just seems to tick faster. Your telomeres, the protective caps on your DNA, start to shorten, accelerating aging at a cellular level. Wrinkles deepen, bones weaken, and what once felt like vitality slips into frailty. And then there's the cruelest trick of all. Loneliness doesn't just make life shorter, it makes it feel longer. Time drags when there's no one there to share it with, and days bleed into nights in constant loops of sameness. The silence, echoing louder than any noise, can lead you to the edge where despair and hopelessness linger, pushing you to self-destruction. But Generation Z, although imminently alone, is ever so adaptive. Their values and decisions seem to unconsciously combat the shortcomings of societal loneliness. Since birth, Gen Z are becoming masters of the war for the mind. A substantial 87% of Gen Z prefers to be seen as authentic instead of cool online. This highlights an evolution in the desire for genuine self-presentation. And further, 66% of Gen Z utilizes tools like wellness apps, while 55% have attended therapy. And in the book Instabrain, Gen Z has reported feelings of guilt for utilizing social media for entertainment, opting only to use it for inspirational or educational content wherever possible. Gen Z, as the masters of war over the mind, have realized that the first means of prevention against loneliness is likability. Those with an increased perceived social value gain new friends, followers, and fans through rigorous online effort and study of what works. The game of developing online identities has hit such a late stage that there's endless articles and videos of all the do's and don'ts of creating an online persona. Millennials were largely young adults when social media started to take shape, but Generation Z and the generations after have been born to suffer their influences from day one. If this is you, the implications of social media existing since birth has been as influential as being born in an era of airplanes versus horse-drawn carriage. Dazed, in an article, reported how it took us surviving a global pandemic to realize to what level we've been conditioned to just grin and bear it for the sake of our social personas. This realization hasn't reversed the deeply rooted desire to put your best foot forward. If anything, those in survival mode now look to mix in moments of strategic vulnerability to make their positive personas seem more authentic. Even knowing we can be seen right through online, we do not want to take the gamble on showing who we really are. Lonely. And because social media is so new, we're only now starting to see the negative, broad sweeping effects of being raised in a generation of it. Studies have shown in teenagers that an increased amount of time on social media leads to an increased sense of depression and worthlessness among those teenagers. Further, that excessive social media use increases the likelihood of depression by 13%. Social media fosters comparisons with the idealized versions of other people's lives, leading to lower self-esteem, increasing feelings of inadequacy, especially with adolescents and young adults. And seeking validation on social media through likes creates dependency. Recent studies continue to parade the negative side effects of social media, including sleep disruption, anxiety, cyberbullying, depression, and suicide. A 2023 study by Cigna drew a strong connection between the overuse of social media and feelings of loneliness and depression. Further studies show a correlation between the use of phones in young adults and the rate of depression climbing since 2010. And Gen Z alone has been the first generation forced into this circumstance of fighting for their mind. Gen Z, for this reason, leads in the adoption of mindfulness and meditation apps, indicating interest in practices that align with stoicism or self-reflection. All of this in the name of reclaiming power over one's own mind in a world that seeks to control the digital user. But again, it's an uphill battle against a force that no other generation before has ever had to weather. When the scales balance, Gen Z spends 26% more on travel and leisure than millennials did at the same age. And that figure is projected to grow in spite of economic uncertainty. Travel is no longer about taking a vacation. It's about self-care and self-actualization, curating social media clout while temporarily escaping the crushing weight of isolation. And this is where Airbnb thrives. Its product isn't just short-term lodging, it's emotional gratification packaged as belonging. The promise of Airbnb isn't simply somewhere to sleep, it's the fleeting opportunity to feel like a local, to share a kitchen with strangers, to live a different life just for the weekend. It markets itself as an antidote to disconnection, but it's more of a band-aid than a cure. Much like the tobacco industry of the 20th century, Airbnb doesn't market its product without consequence. The dopamine rush of discovering a charming artist loft in Paris or a rustic cabin retreat in the Catskills, it's addictive, but it's fleeting, and to set down your phone and return to your 9-to-5 can feel lonelier than ever before. Yet, just like when smokers light up another cigarette to stave off the withdrawal, younger lonely travelers book their next stay in the name of clout and self-care. And what's more is the dangers of Airbnb are hidden behind virtue. Peer-to-peer software meet with a host, human-to-human connection, but it's all becoming a lie. Marriott recently purchased a brand called Postcard Cabins, a collection of 1,200 short-term rentals. Meanwhile, they own a competitor to the Airbnb platform, Marriott Homes and Villas. My students alone have made over $1 billion in short-term rentals. Some of my students have more than 400 Airbnb properties as one single host. That's not connection, that's capitalism. But for now, we can't see past the shiny chrome exterior of the Airbnb service offered. So we participate in hopes of arriving somewhere, anywhere, that we can experience a little more humanity. And Airbnb's business model feeds off of this cycle. They're marketing more than just homes, it's escapism. The Airbnb algorithm learns what you crave and then tempts you with curated listings, then nudges you with emails that says your adventure awaits. In reality, Airbnb isn't fixing loneliness, it's monetizing it. But what happens when the economy contracts? History tells us that in times of recession, spending on luxuries and goods plummets. Yet for a generation that's accustomed to spending on experience over necessity, Airbnb may have a shield against that downturn. If loneliness is a disease and escapism is the drug, the demand for quick fixes won't go away with an economic slowdown. In reality, it might intensify. This raises an unsettling question. Has Airbnb positioned themselves as a necessity against the emotionally starved? If this is true, their business model isn't just recession-proof, it's recession exploitative. Airbnb may not bust with a financial downturn or a housing collapse. Instead, their future may just depend on how lonely we remain and how much we're willing to spend on not being alone. Do you book getaways in the name of self-care? Is your ideal Instagram wall videos and photos of you smiling in Fiji and the Bahamas and the Rocky Mountains? Do you want to be seen as well-traveled and well-adjusted? Have you found yourself booking flights instead of reading books? If so, you might be Airbnb's next victim of escapism. I'd like to know what you think down in the comments, and thank you for visiting and watching this video all the way through to the end. You're my favorite people, and as always, I'll see you on the other side.